Hi, welcome to the Diablo podcast. We are online at diablopodcast.com, and this is a service of the official Diablo 3 site located at diablo.incgamers.com. I am your host, Flux, and joining me today is my co-webmaster and the founder of the longest-running site about any Blizzard game on the internet. It's Elly Davis.
For God's sake. Hello. Oh, well, I didn't expect that. I just thought you were going to say in his Elly.
So, that's the best intro you've ever had, or at least the most recent. We were talking, we being you and me and your IncGamers partner and business associate, Paul, a.k.a. Rushter. We're talking recently about the podcast that we've been running. This will be, I believe, the 19th installment in about, 2 months? We've been turning them out pretty quickly.
Yeah, you have. Lightning pace.
And, well, there's been lots to talk about. And you guys were pointing out that while the podcasts are really good for our regular readers, our devoted, loyal, hardcore Diablo 3 fans, they're not real accessible or inclusive to all of the new readers we're getting now. As Diablo 3 approaches the beta and then ultimately the release, there's a real influx of new fans who aren't really looking for 45-minute in-depth conversations about monk skill changes, perhaps. That was basically what you and Rush thought, right?
Yes, yeah, I thought it needed to be, it's like the old IncGamers podcast that we used to do. We used to have a lot of fun doing that, and it was knowledgeable but accessible, so you never really ostracized anyone by being too geeky. And I just thought maybe we could have one that would maybe discuss the news items.
And we're not dumping the whole podcast. We're going to continue doing the more in-depth, detailed, feature-driven ones with our excellent core of volunteers. But we're also going to try to add a little more news coverage in and a little more, so people who don't read every news item and comments on it can be like, oh, that's what's going on in the community.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I think that's what this one's going to be, isn't it? And we're going to try and do it on a weekly basis. Aren't we?
Yeah, around there. It'll depend a little on if there's news. We haven't really had much news at all the last few weeks, so it's been, all just content discussions. But hopefully as we approach the beta, and then enter the beta, which looks like it'll be in early or mid-August, there will be tons of news, and we'll be discussing that.
And that could be just 5 weeks away.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. I mean, it was hard to believe during the last conference call in May when they said the beta would be starting in the third quarter, which was, just a little over less than 2 months away at that point. And of course we're into the third quarter for, I guess not till July. Not for, 2 days yet?
July 1st, tomorrow, yeah. No. Tomorrow.
As we know, there is going to be Blizzard is going to have a sort of a media event at their headquarters late in July, apparently the 26th, 27th, 28th. And they've said that the people attending that will be playing the beta build and will be seeing, apparently, the whole Diablo 3 over Battle.net reveal, which will then be shown to everybody publicly on August 2nd.
Why do you think August the 2nd? Why do you think, because that's a Tuesday, is it to give them enough time to proofread everyone's reports, or are they going to reveal something to the public on the 2nd of August as well?
Everyone attending it is under an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, which means you agree not to talk about anything until August 2nd. I think that's mostly to let people coordinate their coverage. I don't think Blizzard is going to proofread everything. But I think it's mostly, there's people attending it from China and Europe and all over the world. And if they're there until the 29th, it might take them a day and a half to get home, given travel arrangements and time zones and such. And I think they want to give everyone a chance to post something and get their coverage organized.
Right. Because they used to proofread, didn't they? They used to proofread ours when we used to go, and even when we went through there, we had to send off the reports to be proofread, and I think you had to alter some, didn't you?
Yeah, they wanted to make sure we didn't make any gross mistakes. You would just transpose some facts in your brain. When you see a ton of new material 6 hours straight or something one day, it's very easy to get a few details wrong. Or
you don't think they're going to proofread these lot? You think it's just...
They've had events like this for other game launches. They had them before StarCraft, and just recently before the StarCraft 2. For the StarCraft 2, they had one where people saw the single-player campaigns. And I don't believe anybody had anything proofread or embargoed except by the time.
I was going to say we didn't on the StarCraft site, but then we weren't part of the fan site program anyway.
Well, you were at StarCraft 2, but not the one 2 months ago. Our StarCraft site's kind of inactive at this point, or at least it's not really posting brand news. also, as you asked, I would be quite confident that Blizzard will be making an official reveal of the features on August 2nd as well. They might delay it until August 3rd just to give the attendees a one-day exclusive sort of thing, but I'm sure we'll get official coverage on their website and screenshots and movies and all the actual details. And in addition, the people at this event are going to be conducting interviews of Jay Wilson and the other, official Diablo 3 developers and Battle.net guys. So it's not like it's going to be just what some fan sees in a presentation. We're going to be getting lots of actual quotes as well.
And we think their beta's going to start shortly after that.
Well, they previously said, they being Bashiak, the Diablo 3 community manager, said that Blizzard would be revealing all the major game systems before the beta began. And obviously, this is a major game system, and so they can't possibly start the beta before August 2nd. But presumably, they're getting close to starting it, and they still say they want to get the game released in 2011. And Blizzard betas are very seldom less than about 5 months, so they obviously need to get it started by mid-August, then you're September, October, November, December. You got 4.5 months till the end of the year. So that's getting towards the last time they could reasonably conduct a thorough beta test and still have the game released, by Christmas or, December 31st at 11:59 p.m. for all we know.
Paul Sam said very recently, didn't he, in some Korea publication that it was coming out. They still intend on launching it this year, and they plan the testing to start in the third quarter still.
They'll have to. Every 3 months, Activision Blizzard runs a quarterly conference call with financial publications. The last one was in early May, which means June, July, August. We have another one coming up in early August. And people are speculating they might use that to announce the start of the beta test, say it's starting in a week or something like that.
They announced the StarCraft beta, did they not, at a conference call?
I believe they did, last year.
Well, there you go then.
It's been over 3 years, over 3 years since Diablo 3 was officially announced.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe it feels tangible, as if it's almost upon us, because, don't you think?
It's getting close, definitely. I try not to really look forward to it that much, because then I would just get impatient. We had a recent news post where there was something about the beta, and I made a kind of a joking comment in it, asking people if you could be, cryogenically frozen until mid-August.
Yeah.
Just would you want to do it, just to avoid having to wait another 6 weeks or 8 weeks of, watching the news? And a number of people said yes, they would, which I thought was kind of funny. But
there was another thread in the forums. I can't remember who it was started by, and it said it was another kind of poll like that: Diablo 3 or Beautiful Desert Island versus Beautiful Desert Island, and most people picked Diablo 3 over the island.
That was my agreement. I alluded to Robinson Crusoe and that Tom Hanks movie, where quite soon you're insane and talking to volleyballs. So
yeah.
Anyway, we are looking at comments from the listeners, the potential listeners anyway, our readers, via our YouTube videos page, and also our Facebook page is on facebook.com/DiabloIncGamers. You posted a thing yesterday on our Facebook page asking for questions or comments for today's podcast, which is right now. And we had one from a reader named Kyle. I feel like I'm on the radio. Here's Kyle from Iowa. He's got a question about... After my cheesy intro, I guess that's only appropriate, though, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, Kyle had a question about skills with and without runestones, and he pointed out that it looks like it's always better to have a runestone than to not have a runestone. And that was something that came up especially after last year's BlizzCon in October, where we being people who attended the show and played the game, such as myself, got to see just how useful runestones were, and it became very immediately evident that any skill is always improved by any runestone. There's 5 runestones and they all add different sort of properties which vary from skill to skill. But it's always better to have a runestone than not have a runestone. And that there was some fan outcry at the time. People are like, well, what if I like the base skill and what if I want it to just be what it is? But I guess the analogy would be like sockets and items. You can use an item without a socket, but anything you put in the socket will always improve the item in one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that about anything. What if I like it with this rune and not that rune? But that rune's better than this rune.
Yeah, and the runes all do different things, so it seems like there will actually be a fairly good variety. It's not like we'll all just want, the plus damage rune in every skill. There's a lot of different stuff they do, and I think Blizzard, the developers, have mixed it up enough to keep it lively. But one of the things that Blizzard said in response to that question or complaint about runestones always being better is that at least one of the runestones in every skill would retain the base skill graphic or function, more or less. You know, it might add damage or it might make the firing rate a little faster or something. But it wouldn't be that all 5 would radically change it and you would basically never use anything like what the original skill itself was.
But they don't. None of the runes change the nature, do they?
They change offensive to defensive skills in some cases, and it would change your build entirely. It's not like it just adds fire damage or something.
So why are people complaining then that runes change?
People have a sort of a preemptive nostalgia for what the actual skill does, even though they've never actually used the skill in most cases. They want one of the runes to preserve the basic skill function and or look, which seems kind of odd given that we've never actually used them except for in demos, and most of them are new skills. There's very, very few that are just recreations of Diablo 2 skills. But one of the things that Blizzard has said is that at least one rune will keep that basic function. And of course we all believed that, and then quite recently, like I think it was last month, or earlier this month even, they released videos showing all the rune effects in one skill for each character.
Yeah.
And in several of those instances, every single runestone changes the skill completely. So perhaps they're, what they said last October is outdated, or maybe we just got sort of misleading skills in their demonstrations.
Well, if you look at the videos, which can all be seen on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Diablo3 Inc. If you go there, you can perhaps, when I was looking at those, I think it must have been an incredible amount of work because all the graphics are different, to do all the skills times 5 or whatever it is, different. So perhaps at the beginning they didn't feel that they were going to be able to come up with that many variations, and so they hedged their bets a bit by playing it down. But then as time went on, they thought, sod it, let's go for it, and we can do 5 completely different effects for each skill.
I think it's almost a mindset as well. I mean, once you start changing them, if there's 4 that look different and cooler, you don't really want to leave one runestone that just looks exactly the same as the base, because for one thing, how would you know which one some other player was using? I mean, especially in PvP, you want to know what their skill is going to do when it hits your character.
Yeah,
and if one of them,
visual.
yeah, I mean, I guess no one's going to be using unruned skills in PvP. So if one looks the same, then it's going to be by default. You assume it's Crimson or Obsidian or whatever that happens to look the same in that skill. But at the same time, you have these runes and they're fairly rare and valuable, and you find one and you save it up and you put it in your skill, and then it looks exactly the same as the skill you've been using. You'd be like, well, that's kind of lame. I wanted it to look different.
Are they saying that there will be each skill will have a rune that keeps it looking the same?
They said that in October, and they haven't commented since. But from the videos,
none of them.
Every skill changes at least a little bit. I mean, not unrecognizably. Like Ray of Frost is the wizard skill that shoots like a kind of a laser beam of ice. And I think one of them looked very different. One of them was kind of like a swirling tornado sort of effect, like a defensive version. But the other 4 were all still a beam of frost, and it was augmented in some way, like little yellow swirls were going around that are little red lights. I mean, it was still recognizably Ray of Frost. It just had a little bit added to it visually. So, to answer your question, sort of, I mean, they all do seem to be at least a little bit different, but not so much so that you won't recognize them.
Out of all those videos that were released on the things, which one was your favorite video?
I actually liked the Demon Hunter. I always want to call her Demon Hunger, so now I guess I'm going to change it to Dungeon Hunter as well. I liked that. I'm a big fan of the Boazon in Diablo 2, and I like the ranged attacks, and I really enjoyed playing the DH at BlizzCon last year. But that skill was not in the demo at that point. But it's just this huge, like, bazooka powerful blasting skill, and it shoots this giant arrow thing that explodes and sends out little shrapnels everywhere.
The Indigo one that turns it into a heat-seeking or enemy-seeking missile, that was the favourite rune. But I think the Demon Hunter is actually the character I'm going to go for first. But most people, from the comments on those videos, seem to comment mostly about Acid Cloud.
Yeah, the Witch Doctor one.
Yeah.
Sort of his vomiting Mardi Gras mask skill.
Yeah, that actually made me feel a bit sick the more I watched it, because obviously you watch them time and time again, and it repeats it as well, actually, in the video. But by the end of it, I was feeling a wee bit queasy, actually.
Part of the videos evaluating my favorite was that they were filmed on this Matrix-like black background, where there weren't any monsters and there wasn't even really a floor or walls. it was hard to see some of the Demon Hunter's skills. There was a lot of wondering about, do these skills pierce? How many enemies will they hit, etc. You couldn't tell without any enemies in the video. But then there were some that had darker effects. Like one of the Demon Hunters ones, they said it sent out, I think they called them shadow monsters or shadow demons that would attack nearby monsters. And you really couldn't see those on the black background. You could just kind of see a shady little figure, which moved very quickly and wasn't especially visible. But, when you use that, in some brightly lit desert Act 2 type area, and you see these little spectral black demon things fly out of it and attack monsters, I think it'll be much cooler looking than it was in the demonstration.
Some people were asking if the videos could be released in a gameplay setting to have it in context, but I actually quite liked it on the background, because the black background rather, because it just meant I could just focus and see the vibrancy of the artwork. Yeah. It
did leave a lot of questions about how the skills worked, though, because we were wondering if Ray of Frost was piercing, or if it was piercing everything, or just like one or two targets. And the monk's skill they showed, his sweeping wind, where he leaps in the air and whips around his staff, wasn't evident what the differences were in the three different levels of it. Does level 1 hit 1 monster? Does level 2 hit 5 monsters? Does level 3 hit 10 monsters? That kind of thing. And there's no way to tell that without monsters, but it's fun to have mysteries yet unanswered.
Yeah, I think it was just an exercise in eye candy, and I think it filled that very well.
Every fan was like, can we have another one of these every week until release? And Blizzard was like, no.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that was their reaction.
They're very grudging on their website updates. We get one every 2 or 3 months, and usually it's pretty cool, but they're not very frequent. They're all busy making World of Warcraft wallpapers, I'm sure.
Oh God, I wondered how long before you mentioned the blooming WoW wallpapers.
Oh, they're very important. They do one every week, and they do one once a year for Diablo 3, so it's nice that they have their priorities fixed. Anyway.
Moving on.
Another fan on our Facebook page asked about the ongoing, we just posted news about it this morning actually. There's a guy running a blog on Blogspot, I think it is, and claiming to be a Diablo 3 quality assurance tester working in Blizzard's offices, and he's going to give us all secret details and information about the game. And he's been answering questions submitted by readers on this blog for the last couple of days, and there's been a great deal of debate whether or not he's legitimate or not. And Blizzard's community manager for Diablo 3, Bashiok, made a post yesterday on Battle.net in response to that, and I think he just said it's super fake. It was a very short reply. But, of course, then some people said, well, that means it actually is fake, and some people said, well, what is Blizzard PR going to say? Yeah, it's a real leak, and it's a real thing, and we're trying to stop it. No, of course not. They're going to try to minimize it and make it go away, even if it were real.
No, I think we can only base on what the guy's written or hasn't written to make our own. I don't think we can go on what Bashiok said, really, because he's going to say that, as you say.
He said what we would expect him to say. So
yeah. He couldn't possibly come out and say, yes, it is, and we're aiming to get the site closed down, because everyone would be over it like a rash.
Like a chicken on a June bug.
On a what?
My grandma used to say that. She was in the Midwest. Like a chicken on a June bug. I'm not even sure what a June bug is, actually.
Oh, right.
Some sort of insect that apparently poultry finds, delectable.
Okay.
My take on it, I think it's 100% fake. I think it's just a fan who's fairly knowledgeable about the game and thought this would be a fun way to kind of troll people or, to kill time or just to have some fun.
Yeah.
And he's doing a pretty good job of it. He's very knowledgeable. He hasn't made any grotesquely obvious errors about the game. And he's often vague about things. Says, I haven't tested that yet, or it might have changed during testing, or etc.
Yeah.
And our last real official information was last October at BlizzCon. So obviously anything he says that varies from that, people can easily chalk it up to, well, they've changed the game in the last, 8 months.
Yeah, he's very vague as well on some things that you wouldn't think he would be so vague on.
Like I said in the news post on our Diablo IncGamers.com site, he says, he's only playing the Wizard, which is a character we know a lot about, so he can make a lot of authoritative comments about the Wizard. And then people ask about the Demon Hunter, which was the most recently revealed class, and about whom we know much less. And he's like, well, I haven't really played her yet. I haven't played much of her, so I can't really say much. I'm like, well, that's convenient. Or, people ask him about Runestone effects, and he's like, well, I'm not really keeping a list. I've just tried a few, and this one does this, but he's very vague about it. It's like one of them adds like a fire bonus to this skill. I'm like, well, that's really going out on a limb. Don't see a lot. Yeah, don't see a lot of fire bonuses on skills in Diablo 3.
Is he still playing it, according to him?
I haven't looked this afternoon, but he did another long post as of yesterday saying he would continue to answer more questions.
It's fake, isn't it? It has to be.
Well, the same thing happened literally a month ago, where a guy was posting 4chan in one of their gaming channels. He posted like a fake interview. He was like, what did he say? He was a fired Q&A tester, and he was now pissed off at Blizzard, and he was going to reveal all these secrets. Mm. And it was just written in really, gibberishy English, hard to read, and made lots of mistakes. And very quickly, people were like, oh, this is just, this is BS. This new guy's doing a much better job.
And I think, just as happened, he knew that people would be all over it with the beta coming up. I don't know what his intention was, just to punk people, I guess.
My main objection to its veracity is that he doesn't sound anything like a QA tester that I've ever heard of or observed. I mean, I actually saw the QA testers and talked to some of them when I was visiting Flagship Studios when they were making Hellgate London back in 2006 and 2007. And they just had incredibly boring, tedious jobs where they had these huge lists of things to check out and huge lists of bugs to fix or, to ascertain. Someone would report a bug and they had to go figure out, they had to repeat it. They had to figure out what it was happening and why it was happening so they could give a very detailed report to the programmers to fix it. Mm. And they never played the same character for hours in a stretch. I mean, virtually never. And this guy is describing playing the wizard for weeks without ever playing any other characters. I mean, from what I've seen of QA, it's like it's the most different experience from actually playing a game for fun that you can imagine. You just have huge lists of things to check out. You do nothing but use cheat codes to jump around the different areas and to, they'll replay the same quest, 20 times in a row with every different character in the game, just trying to break it, trying to see what's weird about it or if they can find some way to make the variables not stack up. Do the last part of the quest before the first part to see if it breaks the code, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just, and this guy's describing it like he's just playing the game for fun for an hour a day with the same character and not really doing any sort of strenuous work, which is wildly inaccurate from all I've ever heard about Q&A testing.
I'm just trying to find a post, actually. There was a post saying different type of tester that has to test the game as like an end user, which actually I thought was what open beta testing was all about. Oh, a UAT, a user acceptance testing. And this is perhaps what the guy's doing, where he gets to play basically as an end user, so he wouldn't necessarily be stressing it like you suggest.
But in other posts, he said that he's playing it in Blizzard. He's not, some people have said maybe he's in the friends and family, like alpha test or beta test, and he's like somebody's brother playing at home. Mm. But he has said that he's actually playing in their offices, which was his excuse why he couldn't get any screenshots. Obviously people said, get us some screenshots of stuff we haven't seen, and that'll prove it. And he said, well, I can't do that because I'm in the offices. And nobody in the offices is playing casually just, the same character for weeks. Or if they did, they would have gone through the whole game 10 times with that character, because these guys work like 8-hour shifts. I mean, it's not a part-time job. So I just don't think the logistics or the math of what he's saying he's doing adds up to his, alleged productivity.
So we're going to chalk this one up to fake along with the rest.
Well, that's my view. I mean, we could be wrong, obviously. It's not, it's happened once or twice in the past. People have told me.
Okay.
But, I mean, he's made a lot of predictions / revelations about how trading is going to work in Diablo 3. And instead of an auction house, he's kind of described this whole weird system of, like, multiple trading games where it's, it's like 50 players in the game and you walk around and talk to each other. Which sounds wildly inefficient, and I really hope they don't do that, if this is a real person. But, in theory, we're going to find out all about that in the next month. So, we'll find out one way or the other fairly shortly.
Auction houses are much more efficient.
It seems so. We did a whole podcast about that 2 or 3 podcasts ago, and, talked about how the World of Warcraft auction house works and how that could be adapted to Diablo 3. And, the big problem in Diablo 3 is you've got rare items and crafted items that have varied stats. Whereas with World of Warcraft, almost all the best items are preset, pre-made, pre-designed by the developers and are all identical. So, it's easy to look for, I don't play World of Warcraft, but, you could say, the best hunter item or the best rogue item or something. You want a sword or you want a spear or you want whatever. And there's only 2 or 3 items of that type and you know what they're called. So it's fairly easy to look it up. Whereas in Diablo 3, there might be, 10,000 really good swords, all with slightly varying stats based on how they rolled with the rare or the crafted. So you would need some sort of really robust system to sort items by the kind of mods you're looking for. Otherwise, you would just be scrolling through, infinite listings of rare swords of the same type. And that's something that'll be curious to see how they handle it.
Yeah, I think they'll just go for an auction house.
Another tidbit in the news was just a couple days ago, we got a new piece of Demon Hunter artwork, which was not brand new. It had been released a month ago in a magazine scan. But now we have a higher quality version of it.
And you weren't particularly impressed, were you? Well, overall, you're becoming a little less impressed with the Demon Hunter.
Well, the piece of art is fantastic. The quality of artwork is just amazing to look at it and, how well drawn it is. It was done by Rain Man, who's one of Blizzard's Diablo 3 artists. The actual name is Glenn Rain. By the way, you can look in Diablo Wiki. Our wiki is diablowiki.net. That's .net. There are other Diablo wikis that you will find much less informative. Should you stray onto the wrong side of the tracks. If you look at diablowiki.net/Glenn Rain, I believe his last name is R-A-N-E, you will see information about him and his biography and his other games and a lot of his artwork. And we have listings like that for every single person on the Diablo 3 team. There's something like, there's more than about 60 or 70 names listed at this point. The artwork, I looked at it and I sent you a text, instant message saying, with the link to the image when I was posting it, saying, our Demon Hunter artwork's just a little unimpressive or uninspiring, I guess. And you said yes.
Did I? Oh, well, I think you flew that one on me at about 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning, and I was trying to sort of.
And now that you've had time to take a closer look and to study it at your leisure,
I do love the bustier, the girdle or whatever you call it on her. I think it's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I like the styling and the fashion on the Demon Hunters. I wore nothing but black and lots of leather myself for many years in my 20s at least, and not quite as ornate as hers, or his, I guess I should say.
But why are you becoming disillusioned with her?
I was considering that while I was writing down some topics for us to discuss here today, and we've seen a ton of barbarian pictures, literally a metric ton. And quite a few wizards, and then quite a few less monk and witch doctor and demon hunters. And the demon hunter is the most recently revealed character, so that's not a real surprise. But I was wondering, even the barbarian pictures, it's they're all kind of Conan themed. It's a big muscular guy in loincloths and metal armors and holding an axe or something. And they're all fairly similar, but I don't really get bored with them as much. And I guess maybe because the characters get a little more personality depth, it seems. And the wizards are kind of cool, and we haven't really had that many Witch Doctor art pieces. I'd like to see a few more of that character, actually. But, I don't know, the Demon Hunter's just sort of always kind of posing, and it has these glowing silver night elf eyes, and it's shooting lots of demons, and it just looks, it's kind of this, I'm too cool to be concerned about this battle. I'm just sort of walking through it and killing everything without any real effort or thought, which was kind of the vision of the character presented in her introductory cinematic at last year's BlizzCon.
Well, she's quite detached, isn't she, from what she's doing? She's mysterious, a Lone Ranger, so... What? What are you laughing at?
A Lone Ranger with silver eyes.
Well, she's got yellow in the latest one, hasn't she? And she's had red as well. Does she not have red in the official reveal? So she's... Yeah,
the animation on the official website, the male and female demon hunter have glowing reddish eyes. Mm. But it's funny because I was thinking... Blizzard's favorite word for their characters is enigmatic. They always use that for Tyrael, and they always wedge that into any description of any World of Warcraft character. And it's kind of a convenient, enigmatic meaning, kind of aloof and unknowable and mysterious. And that's kind of a convenient word to describe because that means you don't have to actually explain the character's motivations or goals or desires. They can just appear and do weird things and then vanish again, which is pretty much what Tyrael does throughout the Diablo series. But it's funny, I was wondering, if they start describing the Demon Hunter as enigmatic as well, I'm going to throw something.
But she is.
I hate you so much right now. So, she and he, there are two, each gender is available for all the classes in Diablo 3, but we tend to ascribe the gender to the one they were shown within the reveal. and the Demon Hunter was the female version, was the reveal.
Yeah.
They say the character's bio is that demon hunters are made, they're not born. It's not like you're born a demon hunter with some sort of inherent skills. They're essentially humans who have survived really traumatic events, like demons wiped out their whole village or their whole family, and now they're dedicated, and they're somehow taken in by the demon hunter organization and trained and given weapons and sent out to kill demons in revenge. And they're supposed to be supercharged for revenge and bloodlusting and violent and dangerous. I mean, that's, you don't need that much depth to character in Diablo 3, right? You don't really need to know their name and where they were born and what their favorite kind of ice cream is.
No, maybe you feel that the barbarian has more depth because he's been around for so long. Although actually he's not the Diablo barbarian anymore, is he? Diablo 2.
They said they're probably going to change that and haven't spoken about it since, so I'm guessing they probably did. But my thought on the Demon Hunter is that if he and or she are supposed to be driven by rage and revenge and bloodlust, and that was kind of what they talked about for the character's resource, which they haven't really fully revealed yet, but it was sort of balanced between hatred and discipline, then then they would not be detached and cool and calm and lethally precise. They would be like raging and insane, or at least once in a while. I mean, this is a horrible analogy, but the one that came to mind was Anakin Skywalker in one of the last 2 Star Wars movies. I think it was the 3rd one, where he goes crazy and kills all the Jawas or the Sand People or whatever it was after his mom dies. That seems like that would be kind of a plot twist that the Demon Hunter could or should have if they wanted to live up to their description of the character, where they're cool and precise and very murderous and powerful, but once in a while they snap and go berserk, and maybe they wipe out a whole village of innocents trying to kill one demon, and then they're remorseful and I wish I hadn't done that, oh my god, I couldn't control myself. But I don't see that sort of plot thing being likely to occur in Diablo 3.
No, I much prefer the slinky, aloof, detached type of character that they've given the Demon Hunter. A cold, heartless killer that's bereft of any feeling and just is sort of on autopilot, as you see in the Demon Hunter video.
It's hard to say that this one character is especially driven to kill demons when that's all any character does 24 hours a day. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, obviously, I said that in the comments. I'm feeling kind of uninspired by Demon Hunter artwork, and there was some agreement and some disagreement. So I don't think there's any, unanimous feeling amongst the community that we're bored with this character's artwork. And it's funny because I actually like the artwork, and that's probably going to be the first character I play. I just am finding the imagery of it a little uninspiring. Blizzard has said that all the characters, all the classes, are going to be very different. They're going to have actual personalities in the game. And the NPCs will react to them differently. And we've seen a little bit of evidence of that in the BlizzCon demos, where NPCs have different speeches for different classes. Those speeches correlate fairly exactly with how the character is presented in their in-game introduction movies. So I'm not sure really how you tailor the NPC speeches to the Demon Hunter when her whole character point is aloof and cool. I mean, do the NPCs try to get a rise out of her or something?
I don't know. I don't know. I can't imagine. Well, there's no reason.
Are they cowering in terror and please don't kill me like a demon?
Well, they should do. They should quake in their boots.
That's it for our topics. Any last thoughts, Elly?
No.
I knew I could count. Okay.
Well, I like to do that because I know it really pisses you off.
Well, it gives me a chance to talk more.
I just want to tell people that Stillman is back on the front page to check him out.
Do you want to add a little more context to that?
Stillman Slab. He's a writer that writes columns regularly, and then he took a break because he'd exhausted everything. So he returned this week with number 45, and he's going to turn it into a monthly thing. So please check it out.
And we will be looking to add some more writers soon as well. We have a long history on the unofficial Diablo site of guest articles and regular columnists. We've had dozens of those in the past. You can look at it in the navigation on top of the page and see lots of the archived ones. And Stillman is our only current active columnist, but we've had a couple of others previously in Diablo 3, and we are going to be adding many more once the game is out. We're going to be having lots of regular writing features, focusing on classes and strategy and items and weapons and all kinds of cool stuff. World lore, as we really tune up towards much greater amounts of content once they learn to beta and then release, which will be quite soon, we hope.
Yep, beta, 5 weeks and counting. That's it. I've called it now. I've called it.
I don't know if you want to plant quite that much expectation in our listeners' minds, Elly.
It's terrible, isn't it? No.
But yes, pretty soon. It certainly seems like it'll be in August.
5 weeks.
That's Elly saying that, not Flux. E-L-I-E. Elly.
What?
Oh, wait.
E-L-L-Y?
Yeah, that's of course.
Oh, you've only known me for 12 years.
The spelling is hard. I'm on the internet. I can't spell. Okay, so thanks for listening, and we will be back probably early next week with another podcast on some sort of deep content issue, and you'll probably hear Elly and I later next week doing one like this about the recent news, assuming there continues to be recent news. And if not, we'll talk about our gardens and our cats.
Oh, I've got loads of gardening tales to tell everyone. I'm sure they'll be riveted.
And thanks for your time, Elly.
Okay.
And bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Oh, moo!
Moo.